you and your partners have said that you don't mind investing in companies that do not have a clear revenue model per se. But I'm curious, how do you then value, how do you, in terms of negotiating the deal, what's your thought process in terms of determining valuation and the long run objective? Something like a Twitter.
Well, so I feel like, you know, when we invest in these companies, most of the time, there's anywhere from one, in some cases, to 6 to 8 employees. So there's usually not a lot of there. And so for me, it's all about how to get the most ownership at the least amount of capital at risk. And valuation falls out. So I don't really think, you know, when I said before that, you know, $1 million for 10% of the company is a $10 million valuation, I don't think that that actually means that the company's worth $10 million. What it means is that I was able to negotiate a 10% ownership for $1 million. Now you can say, well, that's the same thing as $10 million, but I think that venture capital, early stage venture capital investments are options. They're not security, really. For a couple of reasons. One is that if you look at a portfolio, an early stage venture portfolio, a third of the investments we make are going to be worthless. A third of the investments we're going to make, we're going to get our money back to maybe 2.5 times. But had we known that going in, we would not have made that investment. That's not a good enough return on capital, so we wouldn't have actually done that. It's only a third of the portfolio that actually turns out to have any value. So that's one reason why I think of them as options, because there's such a volatility out there in terms of what the potential outcome is. And the second reason I think of them as options is that I think of the venture business a lot like playing a poker hand, where you know you don't know the entire set of cards you're going to get in a deal when you go in when there's only 1, 2, 6, 8 people. So but you have to put some money up, you know, as the ante to get into the investment, and then you'll see some cards, you put some more money up, you see some more cards, and you put some more money up, and eventually, you know, you'll get the whole hand will be played, you'll be the winner, you won't. But the nice thing about the venture business, just like a poker hand, is you can bail at any point along the way. And so you don't necessarily have to go all in on a venture investment unless you really think you got a good hand, you're playing a good hand. So that first investment that you make is like the ante. And so I think of it as a call option. And so what I want in a call option is I want the call option to cost as little as possible, because there's a good chance you're going to have to write it off. And I want to have the greatest amount of potential upside. And you know, we talked about the right to participate in future rounds of financing. You're implicitly negotiating for that too, right? So in the most recent Twitter financing, for example, we got the right to take about 15% of the round, right? Well, there weren't many people who got to take 15% of that round. We got to take 50% of that round. We got to take 15% of the round before that. So those are very valuable rights that you implicitly are negotiating for at the very beginning when you put that money up. So I don't think I answered your question, but to me, it's all a negotiation between us and the entrepreneur and what feels right, and it is very much an art and not a science. But I also think that the pricing doesn't matter as much on that first round as the amount of capital you're putting up, because you're going to get more bites at the apple, and you know the pricing may take care of itself over time.
How do you balance domain expertise with diversification in your portfolio?
Well, we don't have diversification by sector, right? So we're making a bet on web services, and so for us as GPs, we have a lot of risk associated with that sector. But for our limited partners, they can obtain diversification by buying multiple venture funds. So they can, and they do, right? So I don't think that we should be in the business of providing diversification to our investors across multiple domains, since they can get that for themselves. We do need to create diversification within a portfolio for this risk of failure, right? Because since the risk of failure is so high on any one investment at the stage we make it, that if we don't put 12 to 14 names in a portfolio, then we're exposing the portfolio to too much risk. And our limited partners expect us to manage that risk. But they don't expect us to manage the sector risk, because they actually want us to take a lot of that sector risk, because they want us to give them, I think, that exposure to the sector, and they'll get exposure to, SaaS, enterprise, software as a service from somebody else, and biotech from somebody else, and nanotech from somebody else, and green tech from somebody else.